I was chasing a rumor, nothing more than a footnote in a century-old city ledger. Stairwell sealed. No further access. So I found the address, pried open a loose vent, and dropped my phone through the gap. The video came back dusty, grainy, and impossible. A brick storefront, gas lamp brackets, a street sign that hasn't seen daylight since Abraham Lincoln was in office, lying 10 feet beneath modern Sacramento. I thought it was a movie set. Then I checked the flood records. They didn't move the city, they stacked it. Now every sidewalk feels like a lid, so I have to ask, if an entire layer of Sacramento is still down there, what else did we build our lives on, without ever knowing it? I used to picture Gold Rush-era Sacramento as saloons and stagecoaches. Then I read the flood diaries. Whole blocks became knee-deep rivers. Shopkeepers kept canoes by the door. One barber wrote, "I shaved men from the waist up. The rest of them was in water." For 3 winters in the 1860s, the rivers didn't knock. They burst through the front door. Horses drowned, outhouses floated off, and typhoid rode the current. The governor threatened to move the capital south, and yet the prospectors kept arriving, wet, cold, stubborn. Abandonment wasn't an option. Too much silver and state pride were on the line. I walk those same streets today, bone dry in summer, and try to imagine them as canals. Hard to believe, until I find the high water marks chiseled into old brick, tiny tombstones for the sidewalks that never dried. 1B, the impossible proposal. City leaders met in a courthouse attic, safe above the mud, and sketched a solution no American city had tried. We won't fight the water, we'll simply rise above it. Not metaphorically, literally. Jack every downtown block up 10 to 20 feet, then backfill the void below with rubble, clay, and optimism. Keep the saloons open while they rise. Keep the trains running. Don't lose a single tax dollar. The newspapers called it lunacy. Engineers called it arithmetic. 1,000 screwjacks turned in sync could lift a brick hotel an inch a day. Merchants left window displays in place, while crews cranked beneath them. Patrons ordered drinks while the floor creaked skyward. And because time was money, no one bothered to demolish the ground floor facades. They sealed doors with brick, boarded windows, and poured a brand new sidewalk halfway up the old second story. Sacramento didn't just rise, it stacked itself, old city entombed beneath new. That's the part no tour guide ever mentioned to me. They talk about the heroic engineering, the city that beat the floods. They rarely talk about what got left behind, entire streets fossilized in brick. I learned it by accident. A contractor friend sent me a photo of a staircase uncovered during sewer work. 12 granite steps leading to a bricked-up archway, 10 feet below grade. Behind the arch? They didn't know orders were to reseal and move on. That sealed staircase is why I'm here, flashlight in hand, kneeling at vents, dropping my phone through cracks, and staring at frames that freeze mid-century dust motes. Because if one staircase ends in a bricked door, how many more are sleeping under the grid? And more importantly, what stories, ledgers, or bodies did we decide were easier to bury than to move? I used to think history settled politely into museums. Now I know it sometimes lies in wait beneath commuter traffic, listening. The city refused to drown, but did it survive intact, or simply shove its ghosts out of sight? That unanswered question is my first turning point, because once you realize Sacramento sits on its own shadow, you can't unsee the cracks. I stand in front of the old Ebner Hotel, still operating, still rented by the night, and picture the original ground floor 10 feet beneath the tourists checking in. City records say crews jacked this place 8 inches a day for 21 straight days. Nobody emptied the rooms. Bellhops just shortened the stair rails as the building rose. Workers poured clay and rubble under the hotel, level after level, until the doorway that once opened onto K Street now stares into dirt. When I press my palm to the brick facade, I can almost feel the earlier threshold, sealed and forgotten, to keep commerce moving while water lapped at the windows. That's the insane part. It wasn't heroics, it was economics. Raise the cash registers first, deal with the ghosts later. To be ghost streets and sealed storefronts down in the service tunnels beneath old Sacramento, I crouch beside a barred utility vent. My flashlight beam slices across an alcove where a painted sign still reads, "Boots resold 5 cents." The letters glow like they were stenciled yesterday, not 150 years ago. Dust motes dance in the cone of light, swirling like river silt that never settled. I realize I'm staring at an entire storefront, countertop, shelves, even a cracked mirror, mummified in brick. Whoever shut this place up didn't bother clearing inventory. A pair of child-sized shoes, never picked up, sit on the counter, one lace still looped in a half-finished knot. No tour guides lead people here. This cavity isn't on any map. I found it because a maintenance worker confided there was a weird echo behind the vent. That echo is a street that was amputated from the present, still breathing in stale air. City ordinances say any artifact discovered during municipal work must be reported to the county historian. But subcontractors race deadlines. Curiosity costs money. That's why most finds stay boxed in someone's garage, or worse, tossed. I convinced one crew chief to let me see their garbage. Among rusted pipe joints and broken soda bottles, I found a handwritten ledger, names, dates, and columns of numbers, labelled flood credits. It's from 1865, the year after Sacramento began its Great Lift. There's a note in the margin. Tenant refuses to pay, claims ground floor drowned. I run my finger over the ink, still legible, and realize this ledger is proof that people were billed for space that literally went underwater. No wonder resentment lingers like humidity in these tunnels. The city loves a ribbon cutting, not a cave-in. Yet every few years, a sinkhole opens and forces officials to mention subsurface instability. Translation: the buried level is sagging. Preservationists argue we should excavate, study, and maybe open selected blocks as a historical district, Sacramento's own underground museum. Engineers warn that removing backfill could destabilize the modern street grid. Taxpayers don't want to pay for either, so the default solution is concrete. Pump the voids full of slurry and hope no one asks what was entombed. But history doesn't dissolve in cement, it just gets heavier. And the more weight we add, the harder the buried city pushes back. Brick shifting, voids widening, stories refusing to stay silent. 2 ELOS tunnels and local law. Ask 3 longtime residents about hidden passages. You'll hear 3 different legends. One swears there's a tunnel from the old governor's mansion to the riverboat docks, used to escape angry miners. Another talks about opium dens connected by low crawl spaces, lit by whale oil lamps because electricity sparked too loudly. I chased one rumor to a speakeasy basement. According to bar law, a false wall hid an entrance to a Manhattan-style bootlegging tunnel. The owner let me prod around. Behind beer kegs and holiday decor, I found brick. Solid, no secret door, but the mortar line felt wrong. I tapped a section, it rang hollow. We didn't break it open. Property rights, safety codes, the usual red tape. Still, I was certain the legend held true. Sometimes a rumor is a blueprint in disguise. Last winter, after a record rainstorm, a delivery van sank wheel-deep into a sudden hole on J Street. News crews filmed the extraction. The city blamed an old utility void. I waited until after the barriers went up, then talked my way past an inspector by flashing my press badge. At the bottom, I saw a brick arch, perfectly laid, no rebar, older than any utility tunnel. My phone's flashlight revealed a wooden sign half buried in silt, Baker and Sons Mercantile. The inspector muttered, "Never heard of it," then radioed for more fill. They planned to pump concrete that afternoon. I asked for 10 minutes. He gave me 3. I snapped photos, ran a quick 3D scan with my LiDAR app, and traced the arch's curve. It led west, toward a row of cafes currently serving lattes above what used to be a dry goods counter. That moment changed everything for me. I wasn't dealing with isolated pockets. I was looking at a network. An entire commercial district frozen beneath modern life, surfacing only when water or time forced it into view. And if one van's weight could punch through, what about a city bus? A festival crowd? Suddenly, the question wasn't if the past would reappear. It was when, and at whose feet. I used to think of Sacramento as a finished story, built, rebuilt, then safely paved over. But standing in that sinkhole, staring at a mercantile sign no one had seen since Lincoln's presidency, I felt the ground shift again, this time inside my head. If one forgotten storefront lies under J Street, dozens more could sit beneath every cross-grid downtown. Each is a hollow the weight of modern life is slowly crushing. Pipes crack, asphalt sags, water finds the seams, and gravity does the rest. City officials talk about maintenance windows and infrastructure mitigation. What they don't say, at least not on camera, is that they don't actually know where every void is. The old survey books end at the flood line. Everything beneath that is cartographic guesswork. For the first time, it isn't just history at stake, it's safety, and safety gets attention. Within weeks of the J Street collapse, the city formed an underground stability task force. Engineers ran ground-penetrating radar along suspect blocks. Historians begged for excavation permits. Preservationists drafted petitions. Meanwhile, crews kept pumping concrete. Cheaper to fill an empty cavity than to document a forgotten shop, especially when the morning commute depends on that patch of pavement. I joined one radar sweep. The screen looked like a seismograph, peaks and valleys marking density changes. Every deep valley meant air, space where soil should be. We logged 19 anomalies in 3 blocks. Funding covers 2. So the team flipped a coin, literally, to decide which cavities to map and which to ignore. That coin toss still haunts me. Half a century of buried stories determined by heads or tails. I used to chase secrets for the thrill. Now I chase them for perspective. Sacramento's forgotten level isn't just a curiosity, it's a mirror. It shows how quickly we'll entomb the inconvenient, how easily we trade memory for momentum. But history has weight, literal weight, and eventually it presses back, sometimes as a sinkhole, sometimes as a ledger in a contractor's garage, sometimes as a nagging voice that won't let a researcher sleep. So the next time I cross K Street, I slow down. I picture the barber standing ankle-deep in floodwater, determined to keep shaving customers. I picture the shopkeepers who couldn't afford to lift their livelihoods and watch the world rise without them. And I picture the child-sized shoes still waiting on that forgotten counter 10 feet below. The part that keeps me up at night, city crews will seal those empty chambers with concrete next week, cheaper than documenting them, faster than answering questions. That's the failing action, choosing speed over memory and burying the mystery a second time. But that's where you and I step in. If this hidden layer of Sacramento sparked your curiosity, don't let the story set like fresh cement. Tap like so the algorithm knows people still care about buried history. Hit subscribe to join me on the next descent, an abandoned Cold War bunker the maps pretend doesn't exist. Comment below. Could your hometown be hiding a forgotten layer?